Hey, it's the Midnight Raven, and today we're looking at the case of two young teenagers that go missing. The case is called Into Thin Air. So I'm going to explain more about the case in just a sec. Just to warn you today, some of these names are in Japanese, and I'm going to do my best to pronounce them correctly. If I don't pronounce them correctly, do forgive me. This is a very hard case to give out information on with it having Japanese names in, but we're going to try our best because the case really did spark my interest. If you're new to the channel, give us a big thumbs up and we're going to get right on into this case of these two missing teenagers. So, a Japanese tradition called kimomashi, I think it's pronounced that, kimodashi or kimomashi, translate as liver test. A more loose interpretation, it means it's a spiritual test of courage and nerve, usually done at various cursed locations, including graveyards, disused buildings, and this is usually done by people in their teens, wanting to give themselves a bit of a fright, but also to prove that they can do it. So, kimodashi, or kimomashi, can't pronounce it, was performed by these two girls, supposedly, who then disappeared. So let's get into this. Megumi and Yakashi decided they were going to try their own kimomashi in May 1996. They had chosen a deserted 6-story hotel built in a woodland 35 miles away from their home. So the Tsuzubono Hotel, which was a spa, had gone bankrupt years before and had become a place of where this kimomashi was performed, and loads of teenagers had gone there to assert their bravery and courage. The two 19-year-olds decided they were going to take a trip to the spa on the final day of the Golden Week holiday celebration, celebrated between the 29th of April and to the first days of early in May. So, a friend of theirs called Narumi had finished their shift and they had brought batteries for a torch and set off into the night in a black Subaru car owned by Narumi. An hour later, they were seen at a petrol station filling up, before friends would receive a pager around 11 p.m. saying they had arrived at the destination and were going up to perform this tradition. This was the last time the two teenagers had been seen alive. Nothing else was heard from them, and no one heard any phone calls, messages, and they were never seen again. So the parents of the two young teenagers contacted the parents. Parents contacted the police 2 days later, and a search found no physical evidence to prove the teenagers had ever arrived at the spa, which was disconcerting and yet suspicious, as a text received by their friends had said they had arrived. So, with no physical evidence to prove the teenagers had ever been at the spa, the police maybe had to dig a little deeper into maybe the black Subaru that had taken them to the spa and when they were seen at the petrol station. Police continued to look round the spa to gain evidence and managed to unearth no evidence that the teenagers were there. The two teenagers had literally disappeared into thin air. But at this point, foul play was not suspected. They had found no bodies, nothing to suggest a struggle, nothing to suggest they were taken of their own free will or kidnapped. They literally had, at this point, nothing to go on. So, the police at this time, with the Japanese law, with the two teenagers being of 19 years old, said that they couldn't release the teenagers' names to the public and neither to the media. They would have to wait until 1 year later before able to give the names of these teenagers, as by law they are technically an adult. So, after going missing for an entire year, the case had gone cold. There had been no sightings of the two teenagers. No more evidence had come through of anyone seeing them. The spa had been checked over and there was no physical evidence that they had been there. So, what had happened to Megumi and Yashiki? What had happened to the two teenagers? What had happened to Narumi, who had dropped them off in the black Subaru? Did they ever make it to the hotel? Had something untoward gone on? Had someone else been involved in all this and maybe they were kidnapped, trafficked? Maybe something had gone wrong and this Narumi person in the black Subaru had kidnapped them? Had they just left as they were two 19-year-olds and by law could just go off and do what they wanted as they were technically adults? So, if you want to see a part 2 and find out whether these two teenagers lived or died, as this is still a cold case today, I'm going to hopefully see you in part 2. So I'm splitting the cases into 2 so that you can get as enough evidence in one, but also it means I can make multiple videos because I like to share this content with you, and sometimes these cases can be really hard hitting and a lot of information in a very small time, which makes it easier to split it in 2 cases so you can digest the cases in smaller amounts. But if you want to see more from me, I am the Midnight Raven. This is the Into the Thin, a case where 2 teenagers go missing and literally disappear into thin air. And I will see you tomorrow for part 2. Take care and thanks for watching. Bye guys.